Welcome to our employer video series. Today we're going to be talking with Julia Jordan. She's Managing Director with Goosehead Insurance, and we're going to be talking about communication tips for Handshake and LinkedIn. Welcome, Julia.
Thanks for having me, Jamie.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. Excuse me. Both Handshake and LinkedIn are both so important for students, and we know that Goosehead utilizes both of those platforms in a big way. So we're excited to have you with us today to give the students some tips.
Yeah, I'm happy to help. And I know that we'll talk a little bit how Goosehead uses these platforms, but honestly, it's almost every single company that recruits at Rawls. And if they weren't on these platforms before, they are now. And
Absolutely.
So I can assure the students that this is everybody that they're going to want to connect with is going to be on these two main platforms, so we can talk about kind of how we use them.
Great. Well, let's get started with Handshake. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how Goosehead utilizes Handshake to connect with students?
Yeah, so Handshake is the new thing. Like, every employer is getting on Handshake. As students probably would agree, LinkedIn is very saturated. You don't know who's connecting with you. Everybody and anybody has access, so it's hard to know if someone reaches out to you, if they're a credible organization and if they have a good reputation, right? And Handshake is just a lot more secured platform. It's also a lot more credible. I mean, everybody involved in Handshake is in the college recruiting system, right? So it's credible companies that are on there, and then obviously credible universities. So they really take a lot of pride in that, and they've just made it extremely simple. I know a new platform can be a little intimidating if you have never been on it, and students are like, are employers even on there? Is this something that the school's just pushing? And I'm telling you, it is. I'm on LinkedIn, but Handshake is where it's at. It is so user friendly, and we'll go into this in a little bit more detail, but it allows students to really customize a profile and match the employer's searches. So it helps us connect with not just the right, if I want to connect with Raw students, it's not just that, it's Raw students that want to be in Dallas-Fort Worth that are looking for certain types of jobs, very specific.
Yeah, that's great. We really encourage students, you were talking about the profiles, and we encourage the students when they're filling out those profiles and preferences to put in as much detail as possible. What would you say are some of the most important things to include in that profile? And when you're going through doing searches, are you looking for anything specific on those profiles?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I want to start by saying that Goosehead hires all types of business majors, really all types of majors, right? It's more about finding the right personality and pairing them with the right position. So I could be looking at certain majors for a specific role, but not really. So this is going to be applicable to every single major. I actually, on my other screen here, have Handshake pulled up so I can show you exactly what I see and exactly what I care about when I look at a student profile. So this is the first thing students need to do is, number one, create an account. So hopefully you have already done that.
Yes.
Second of all is fill out the profile to mimic a LinkedIn profile, right? So the more you can personalize your page, the better. So I'm attracted to pages that look complete because it looks like the student cares, it looks like they're prepared, they're ready for their careers, right? So a professional picture is extremely important. Handshake makes that super easy. Don't worry about it being this headshot that you got taken in a professional environment or even at the career fair. Have a family member take a picture of you, at home. Like, it could be anything, right? So I do look at pictures. I do look at GPA. Here's my opinion, and I think this goes for a lot of employers, is that list your GPA if it's a 3.0 or above. If it's under a 3.0, just leave it off. That's my recommendation to get the most traffic to your page. Okay. It's extremely helpful if you list your graduation date. So you can list a few things about you, but what I like about this one page I'm looking at, it has his name, it says senior, but that doesn't really help employers. We don't know if you're a December grad or a May graduate.
Right.
So list it, like this guy said, graduating December 2020. That's extremely helpful. That way
Right.
he falls into a search that shows that specific date. He could easily get lost if it just says senior. So moral of the story is go into as much detail about your profile as possible. And then it gives you a space to list education, your work experience, organization, and extracurriculars. I think in order of importance, it would be work experience, because one of the filters that we do when we search on our end is show me students with work experience.
Okay.
Not any specific work experience. We understand that you're probably just working random jobs throughout college. That's fine. But go ahead and list those jobs on Handshake, because you could not show up in a search if you don't have anything on there. Skills is another thing that shows up in our search. And Jamie, maybe we go over searches in a minute, but that's important. Extracurriculars and organizations are fine, but it's not something we typically search by. A lot of students will then list courses, like the courses they've taken. That's not 100% necessary. You can do that, but it's not really something that we look at.
Okay.
And this guy that I'm looking at even went above and beyond. He had a get to know me section and just a quick bio about it. And I think that really stands out. So my moral of the story is just complete it to the fullest, because if you leave anything out, then you could be left out on a search that you want to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about, I know there's a preference section. Is that more for Handshake, to the Handshake analytics to kind of send the student what they're interested in, or does that have anything to do with the recruiter side, the preferences?
Yes, that's a great question. So that's kind of what I was talking about, is how I keep saying you could be left out of searches. So let me show you what I see on my end as a recruiter and how I can filter it. Then you know, oh shoot, I didn't put that in mind, so I would have been left out of this search.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can search location interests, which employers do that all the time. So you might not even think to put that in your profile when you're filling everything out, but if you do have a location preference, then you know, you'll show up in a search for DFW if that's what you've put. So for example, I just ran a search a week ago for December grads, and I listed, you know, the types of things I was looking for in a profile, but then I only said, show me students interested in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I just was doing a search on that. So you could be a raw student and very interested in DFW, but because you didn't fill out your profile, you would have not been in my search.
Okay.
So if you do have, and keep it broad, if you're like, I'm open, I want to come in a lot of different searches, perfect. List all the cities you're open to.
Okay. Okay.
And then I also see majors. So obviously you would fill out your major. Graduation date, like I said, being very specific, because right now employers might only be looking up to a certain point. And so if it's specific, it will fall underneath that. GPA, if you do have a 3.0, is important, because sometimes I'll only search 3.0 and above. And if you've left off your GPA, you would not show up in my search.
Don't show up. That's so good to know. Yeah, that's great information.
I can search by your skills. So again, just like blow up your skill section, right? So just to kind of make you show up in more searches, the more skills you have, the better. And
now, are you searching for you're not searching for specific skills. It's just if they have more listed, they're more likely to come up. Like, of course, we would want them to have the competencies of leadership, teamwork, you know, problem solving, those types of things. But are you talking about other kinds of skills?
No, those are exactly, I know that's kind of a broad thing. Students would be like, what the heck would I put here, right? So skills is exactly what you just said. So leadership skills, customer service skills, sales, pretty much what are your interests, right? And whatever your interests are, technology, business consulting, those types of things you can list on there.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I do want to touch on one other thing you mentioned. You talked about having a profile image, which, you know, we're going to talk about LinkedIn in a little bit, and that is more, needs to be more of a professional shot. But I was interested in what you said about you're not necessarily expecting to have a professional headshot on Handshake. Why is that?
So I think what I mean by that is you want a professional picture, right? Like right now, I am at home, right? I don't have a professional photographer here. If I needed a quick headshot, I'd have to use my iPhone. That is okay. So
Okay.
that's what I mean by it doesn't have to be professionally done by a professional photographer, or you don't have to go somewhere to get it done. You can easily do this at your home, and that's what we care about. Wear a suit jacket, right? Or just anything. Like I'm actually wearing a suit jacket right now, but I could also just be wearing a black cardigan, right? So cut it off right here, and just, I guess what you should try to avoid is, and I know this should be obvious, but I see it all the time. I see bathroom selfies, and even they're professionally dressed, but they're taking a picture like this in their bathroom,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That is just so unprofessional. I also see just backgrounds are really distracting. So I was looking literally at a Handshake profile as we were talking, and the guy was wearing a button-down shirt, but you could tell he's just taking a picture from his computer, and it's his bedroom in the background, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, it doesn't give off the most professional vibe. I'd rather just see a wall. Everybody has a wall wherever they live, right?
Just something neutral.
So don't overcomplicate it. Just take a simple headshot, and a picture will really stand out over a profile that does not have a picture.
Yeah. And Handshake crop's pretty tight, I've noticed too. So you're not going to see a whole lot of background anyways, but you're mainly going to see their face.
Right.
Okay, good. I just kind of wanted to clarify that. So I think we've done a pretty good job of talking about Handshake, but when students are searching for jobs, besides filling out their profile and all that, is there anything else that you would like to comment on that might be helpful for them as far as a job search?
Yes. So what we've been talking about is how to kind of complete your profile and then be, reactive, right? When someone reaches out to you. So there are a few ways you can be proactive. So if you do see a company, you can search companies on Handshake, and I know Goosehead has a company profile, and you can see jobs available. Every company is like that. So every company should have points of contact. And if you really want to stand out, then find those points of contact and reach out to them. So don't just submit your application, but connect with that person, send them a Handshake message. When I get a Handshake message, it goes directly to my work email. So it doesn't go to a random black hole, like it goes directly to me. And hopefully, hopefully most companies are like that. And so, take those extra steps to stand out. And the reason why that's so important is most large organizations have a robot that reads your resume, not a human.
Yep. Right.
And so I just remember when I was in college, I was applying for one position over and over and over, and I wasn't understanding why I wasn't getting any response. It's because no human was looking at my resume, right? It was just a computer. So you want to get in front of a person. And so if there is contact information, definitely follow up. Just say, hi, Julia, this is, Jamie. I'm a senior at the Royal College of Business. I just applied for X position at your company. I'm really excited to hear back. Please let me know if there's anything additional I can do. Boom.
Yeah, right? I think that's a great tip.
Right. And so actually we're talking about the company profile pages. You can, learn about companies there. You can also see if they're coming to an upcoming career fair, if they've registered for anything. Those are additional ways that you can connect with companies. Even some of these events might be virtual, right? But this is also another tip. So there's an employer trust score that Handshake gives companies. And obviously, if you have multiple students are having like really poor interactions with a company, the employer trust score is going to go down. But
Okay.
don't read too much into it. For example, Gooseheads is like a 98 out of 100. And I'm like, why is this not 100? Right?
It's still good.
It's fine, right? But there's little things like, for example, our headquarter address is Westlake, Texas, instead of Dallas, Texas. It's a suburb out of Dallas. And some schools, it doesn't register. They're like, where is that? Or so if you've got like a random weird address that doesn't fit a city, the algorithm will ding it. So we've gotten like dinged at times because they didn't recognize an address or something. So
oh, I see.
so
Okay.
you see that with any company and they've got an overall good score, but you're like, why is it not 100? It could be like weird algorithm stuff like
Okay.
that. So
Gotcha.
don't let, students, I don't want to have you like freak out if they're not a perfect score. That usually doesn't mean anything. So
Yeah. That's good though. That's a really good tip. I think that's all been great information on Handshake. Is there anything else before we kind of transition over to LinkedIn? Is there anything else about Handshake you want to add?
yeah, that's a great question. So I know that there are some students watching this that are like, I need a job right now. So they're taking every single tip I give them. Then there are students that are sophomores or juniors, or maybe they're seniors and not quite on the job hunt yet. This is the way of the future right now. Handshake and LinkedIn, you have to get on it if you want, not only if you want a job, but even if you think you have a job lined up and you think it's secure, chances are it's probably not because of COVID, right? There's a lot of companies that are, that are having to pull offers and stuff. You want to stay connected and you do not want to burn any bridge. For example, an employer might reach out to you with a message that they would love to talk to you about a career opportunity. And let's say you think you're not interested because you're not interested in the industry, or maybe you already have a job lined up. Always reply and say, sorry, I already took an offer, would love to stay connected if anything changes. Keep every single door open. You never know what's going to happen. I've had students reach out to me that originally weren't interested in Goosehead that now are, because they have no other options, I guess. That's not a good thing, but at the same time, like, they didn't think they were, and now they are because of,
well, things have changed, things change. But yeah, I totally agree with you. You never want to discount anything because your path can change, and you want to keep those relationships on a positive note and available. I thought that's a great tip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now let's transition to LinkedIn. And one of the things we see with students is a lot of students think they're the same thing, Handshake and LinkedIn. We know they're not. So we can I want you to we can talk about what are some of the differences. You've already mentioned that you're on Handshake more than LinkedIn. Some other employers may be, 50-50,
Sure.
Some may be more LinkedIn. But I do agree with you that there's so much out there on LinkedIn, and it's hard for students to know, okay, is this something that I really should be interested in? Because there are people who are messaging them through LinkedIn and, kind of coming after them, and that makes them go, oh, but you got to be careful with some of that. So let's talk about how, how is it not the same, and how are you using LinkedIn to recruit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So get on both platforms. Just do it. Like, you have to do it. It's not a whole lot of work, and you don't have to, it's not I think sometimes students are like, oh, this is like a social network that I don't want to be on. That's not what it is. I'm never personally on LinkedIn. I just have a complete profile on LinkedIn, and I allow people to reach out to me, right? So we have two different recruiting teams at Goosehead, and one is hiring and engaging with all students, and that's the team that spends a lot more time on Handshake. But the rest of our team, they're only on LinkedIn. They don't use Handshake at all. And so you'll find a lot of companies that have that division. And so it's two totally different people that you could potentially come up in one or two of their searches. That's why it's so important. And so my suggestions on LinkedIn are similar but they're just, it's a different platform. So I'll kind of go through it again. It's that you want to fill out your profile as complete as possible, because recruiters will do searches, and you just want to make sure that you fall into every search possible. There's some additional things you can do on LinkedIn as well to get noticed that you can't do on Handshake. So I'll kind of go over that. So when you're building a profile, you want to, again, I think Handshake is very specific to your university and like on-campus recruiting, right? So that's why GPA and stuff is so important. I'm going to pull up a profile so that I can give you an example of what I want to see in real time. Okay, I'm pulling this guy up. So you have your name, you've got that professional headshot, it doesn't have to be taken by a professional, right? And then you have an opportunity to put a title. And I think that the title is really important. So if you are a graduate looking for a position, have that be your title. Like May 2021 graduate seeking career opportunity. And I recommend keeping it extremely vague, like seeking a full-time career, rather than seeking a role in public relations. I'll tell you how many public relations students I have hired, and we don't have a PR department, right? You never know where you're going to want to end up, and there's a lot of skills that overlap in certain positions. So don't be too specific. You don't want to close the door to opportunities. Like if I saw that, I may ignore you, right? So just keep it very broad. And then you can fill out I think work experience is the most important thing to list on a LinkedIn profile. So it kind of gives your experience, then you can list your education and any involvement, skills and expertise. It's exactly like what Jamie talked about, words like, I see on this guy's communication, creative strategy, team leadership, public speaking, marketing. You know, what you could do is you could start on LinkedIn, because I think they feed you a lot of those skills, and you could just click the ones you like, and you can use those exact terms and just copy and paste them into Handshake, because Handshake is more of an open text field. So you're like, I don't even know what to put here. So
that's a good tip.
And then this is the most important part. So you have the ability in your settings to make yourself available to recruiters. Okay, that is so important that you open your profile to that. And it gives you the opportunity to list what types of positions you're open to. So different titles, right? Make it broad. And then locations. And you can say open to new opportunities. I'll tell you why that is so important that you fill out those fields, because when I run a search, no matter what I put in that search, I can make it extremely broad. There's levels of profiles that show up on my search. And the first one that we'll look at is people who've already engaged with my company. So if you really want a job somewhere, go follow their LinkedIn page. Those are going to be the people that show up first. Those are the first people that are contacted.
Great tip. Yes.
The second people that are contacted are the ones that have their profiles as open to new opportunities.
And that's in the settings, I believe.
That's in settings. Yes. And so go to your settings in your profile. It's not like, it's not on your profile edit page. It is in your settings, right? And we don't go past that. We never go into any other profile unless they're open to new opportunities, because there's so many people that actually fill that out. And it's the most, why would I reach out to anybody else who isn't open to new opportunities? From an employer standpoint, those people are not on LinkedIn. They're not engaged. They're not going to respond to my message. So I'm always going to reach out to the ones that are open to new opportunities. And we usually stop at that and then start a new search.
I love that, because a lot of students don't know about that. So that's kind of like a little hidden treasure there.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, because I was on LinkedIn, no joke, for, 10, 15 years. and I never opened my profile. I had no clue that that was a thing. So it's so crucial. Also, so when you do open your profile and you put things that you're open to, I catch a lot of students that were looking for internships. So they'll put like marketing intern, finance intern, I'm looking for internships, right? Their whole LinkedIn is about the internship and it's outdated and they're actually looking for full-time positions and they never changed it. So make sure it's specific to what you are looking for. And that way you fall into the right searches, right? And then I do recommend, this is back to the editing portion of your profile. There's a section where it's just free text and it's the about you. Keep it broad, but I definitely recommend putting it in there. And do us a favor and list your graduation month and year.
Oh, that's great.
Because it just, that there's no real easy way to put it in your education. Like it typically says like Texas Tech 2020. So I'm like, okay, is it May 2020, August 2020, December 2020? So if you could just really put the month and year and make sure that's listed somewhere on your profile, that's really helpful.
That's great. A good place, like they could put it in the summary. I think it's called summary now, the summary section. And then we also tell students to, they could put it at the end with their call to action, because we tell them I can be reached at the following email.
Oh,
so if a
I
recruiter's,
love that. Yes.
Yeah, so if a recruiter's looking at that and they're like, I'm interested in this person, boom, you have their email. You don't have to go searching around trying to figure out how to get a hold of them.
I love it. Yeah, and it's just better for both parties. Like the way that recruiters contact students on LinkedIn or anybody on LinkedIn is through messages. And I think that's what gets so crowded and just so noisy.
Yes.
And so if we can just have your email, especially if you're on the job hunt, put it out there, put your contact information out there. And I know students today are so scared of phone calls for whatever reason. And I think we're just used to texting. We're used to, like, we don't want to talk on the phone. You get used to it. The business world picks up the phone. They don't text, right? They pick up the phone. They have conversations. It's something you need to get used to.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If anyone reaches out to you on LinkedIn or a handshake and they're interested in talking about an opportunity, take it. It's a 5-minute phone call.
It's not the rest of your life.
It is nothing. You are not, by accepting that call, you're not accepting a job, right? You're just saying, sure, what is this opportunity? I'll have a 2-second conversation, and then you can truly know if it's an open or closed door. So I just see so many students that are just so scared to take a conversation. You're not making any type of commitment, and I think it's going to really help your job search, especially during this time when it is so unknown. What you thought you wanted to do is not available anymore. You could land your dream job by being in this environment. You know, I mean,
absolutely.
I thought I was going to go into real estate in 2009, which was like, the housing market crash, right? So I was like, well, shoot, I better find something else. And I loved Goosehead. I was so obsessed with the company, and it was insurance. Like I never, ever would have considered that. And it's been a life-changing career. So I think that you never know. Just take the call.
Absolutely. There's another thing I want to touch on. You briefly mentioned it, but when a student is more active on LinkedIn, you said that they're more likely to come up on a search.
Yes.
So what are you wanting to see, like, as far as how could they interact with Goosehead on LinkedIn without, other than just direct messaging you? What are some other ways to interact with employers?
Yeah, it's super easy. It's not time consuming at all. You literally go follow the company page. Just go to the company page, hit follow, and you'll fall into that first category of people we reach out to. That's it.
Okay.
So this is
That's
not,
awesome.
I have to get in and do all these things. No, you don't have to do anything. Just go follow the company.
Okay.
Now, here's another tip as far as engagement goes on LinkedIn. It's not just overwhelming on the students, and it's pretty overwhelming on the employer as well. Right now, for example, I think I have like 500 plus connection requests, And
Oh,
so, like, if a student is trying to connect with me to stand out, they're somewhere in that 500. Like, I don't even see them. But if they do that, like right after a call, and they tell me, I'm going to go connect with you on LinkedIn, I look out for it, right?
okay.
So I think just communicating, hey, I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn, or don't just send a connection request. Send it when you ask to request, or when you ask to connect with someone on LinkedIn, you have the ability to write a little message.
Yes.
Write that. Like, that's what stands. Because
Yes.
if not, we're just going to hit accept, 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 and we're
Right.
not going to even look at your profile.
Right. Okay. I think those are great tips. So you do connect with students on LinkedIn if, if they're kind of in a situation where you're like, okay, I met with that person, I remember, there they are, that type of thing. But I'm glad you brought up that you get so many connection requests, and it's just another place for students to get lost. So I'm glad that you mentioned ways that they can kind of go around that to help themselves stand out. Is there anything else about LinkedIn that you think is important to talk about?
I mean, when we're on the topic of just oversaturation, whenever I do have students, as they network with some of our people at Goosehead, they'll connect with them on LinkedIn thinking that's the way that they can stay in touch. Honestly, at any point in time, I mean, do that, right? Definitely connect with them on LinkedIn, but at any point in time, if you can get someone's phone number or direct email, that's always the best route, right?
Okay.
In addition to
Mm-hmm.
connecting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. I mean, the search rules are the same for both, for Handshake and LinkedIn. So just make sure, if you're open to specific cities, specific types of positions, just list those anywhere that you can, so that you just open up as many options as you can.
Okay.
I think that's it. It's pretty simple.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I see is that students don't fill out the summary section. I mean, it's a 2,000 character box. It may be more now. I know in the past it's been 2,000. Such a great opportunity to promote themselves, basically, or give some information to that recruiter. So, when typically, what are you seeing when you're looking at profiles? Are you seeing a robust summary section typically, or what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I will tell you, it's such an easy way I completely agree with you on that, because it is, if it's there, it's where my eyes go, because it just, where it's laid out it's the first thing I see, and it's a very easy way to stand out, because not everybody does it. But I would say there's a good and bad way to do it. A bad way to do it, the worst way to do it is to not do it at all.
That's right.
A bad way to do it is being too specific. So, and I see this all the time, and I was guilty of this. I was a marketing major, so I was like, okay, I'm a marketing major, I need to go find a marketing job. Like, or I'm, in gosh, I don't know what specific things there are, but let's say accounting or supply chain is a good example, because supply chain, you think, okay, I need to go into logistics. So I say, I'm a supply chain major graduating in December, looking for a position with a logistics company. If I see that, I'm like, that's an uphill battle. Like, I'm not going to reach out to that person.
Right.
Where we have so many supply chain majors that are making like multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Like, you're missing out on those opportunities by being specific.
Yes.
So I think just my favorite ones are just very general, and they are specific to your overall career goal. So you could say, well, my career goal is to become, I don't know, this specific title, like a public relations executive. It's like, okay, that could be your career goal, but there's a reason why. It's because you like working with people, you have leadership skills. It's because you're going to get those things out of that career, right? So you actually are open to other things, as long as they meet those exact, like, those internal goals that you have, right? So I would focus on those things, saying like, highly ambitious graduate, looking for a strong company culture in professional development. My end goal is to be in leadership. Saying those things and staying away from specific industries or titles is going to open up the right doors for you.
Yeah. And you can still, the summary section is a great place to put keywords that helps come up on searches in LinkedIn.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
you can still grab job descriptions from different industries to gather keywords to put,
Put on the skills section so that
it's in the skills section,
right?
in the summary section. So you can still not be super specific and keep yourself more open, but still using some of the keywords that employers would be looking for. So
right.
Is there anything else you would like to add about LinkedIn or Handshake?
I mean, just the overall summary is that I know that moving forward in the next year or so that, it is going to look different from how it's looked in the past. The
Yes.
whole campus recruiting, world on both ends. And so, like, for example, Goosehead has done great during the recession. So we're already on to 2021 graduates. And I think a lot of 2021, like May 2021 graduates wouldn't even think to get started on this type of stuff yet. But the companies that are thriving in this environment, that are stable, the ones that are good opportunities that you can rely on, they're ready to go. Mm-hmm. So think ahead, put yourself in a position to get noticed, even if it feels early. That just it puts you in the driver's seat. It gives you a lot
absolutely.
And doesn't back you into accepting a position just because it's last minute and it's all you have. So get started early.
And summer's a great time to get, students typically have a little bit more time. They can get that Handshake profile going, get that LinkedIn profile going, and the Career Center is here to help them with that if they need it. So
yeah, and I remember whenever I was a student, I was like, oh, this is like a project I have to do. Like, no, it is going to take you 20 minutes out of your day total.
That's true. Yeah, it doesn't take that long. Exactly.
Same thing. Just copy, do one, and then copy all the stuff to the other platform.
Exactly. Well, Julia, we thank you so much. I feel like that was just great information, very relevant, and just things that students can take right now and move forward with. And we appreciate you being with us today.
Yeah, no problem. If any students need just a general advice or want to reach out to me directly, I think my contact information is somewhere in this meeting, or just contact Jamie or anyone at the Career Center for it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.